It was good, y'all. It's your boy JD6 here. I'm with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the man. And welcome into another episode of the KC Sports Authority podcast. Keegan Russell and JB Merker here with you guys tonight to talk some KU basketball. But first, before we do that, just a quick shout out to those who are, if you're a first-time listener, first-time watcher of the podcast, or you've been a long-time listener this whole time, thank you so much for joining us tonight, checking out this episode, and for checking us out this whole time. If you're watching over here on YouTube, just real quick, do us a quick favor, hit that subscribe button at the bottom of the screen there. Hit like as well. That way more people can find our content, continuing to push our subscriber base up. Next goal is to get to 500. So could definitely use your guys' help to get there. And, of course, you know where to find us. You can hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at KCSA Pod. All right, JB, let's talk some KU basketball. Big 12 play, maybe not quite the start we had hoped. No. We've been rough on the road. I mean, just to go back to a couple episodes ago, you talking about us being the worst Bill Self team on the road per se. Might not have been totally wrong there. I know I thought it was an overreaction at first, but then we followed it up with another poor performance against a team way worse than us. I know we beat Oklahoma State in between there too. But offensively, we've been fine. Just defensively, we struggled on the road. So that's kind of where I want to start things out here. Let's talk about how KU's doing in the Big 12. Big 12 competition is probably at an all-time high, if I would say so myself. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but it just seems like the Big 12 right now, everybody is beating each other up. Everybody's giving each other the best shot. It's two ranked teams almost any given night. And KU, of course, has come up on the short end just a few times. But since the last time we spoke about 2 weeks ago, I know we've had a couple games here, a couple wins, a couple losses. But just kind of what's your thoughts on the Big 12 as a whole so far and where KU sits in the Big 12?
I mean, I think we're pretty fortunate to be even where we are with the record that we have. I mean, look at that. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it on the screen right now. We're lucky to be even toward the top, to be even in the conversation, because if you think about how poorly we've done on the road so far this season, not only in Big 12 play, but so far this season, how poorly we've done on the road, add that with how we barely beat TCU. I mean, my gosh, we could be looking at a much worse record here. I mean, we could be in a situation that is just absolute panic mode. I don't think the KU fan base is really hitting the panic button yet. I mean, it's obviously still really early in the grand scheme of things for Big 12 play, but I think we've set a tone. The Big 12 as a whole has set the tone that this is the most competitive year it's been in the last, I would say, 15 years, maybe. I mean, especially with the Big 12 getting literally larger. Now there's 14 teams in the league, at least this current year, 14 teams. I mean, everybody came to play. We talk about how everybody plays their best game against Kansas. Everyone, we get everyone's best shot. We know that.
Yep.
That's no stranger to us. But I think I wouldn't say the league is catching up to Kansas. But I would say I think the league is becoming way just more comfortable in their identities. I think college basketball as a whole in the climate that we're in right now is a more competitive landscape. You got students sticking around when they could have gone to the NBA to make some money. Now they're sticking around because they're making money off NIL. I think it's actually upping the competition. And man, like I said, we're very fortunate to have the record that we have. I'm a little worried, though, because we are losing these games on the road. We're losing games that we shouldn't be losing. Even though they're on the road,
Yep.
We are losing the ones that we thought were gimmies.
UCF and West Virginia were not the two we predicted being losses, unfortunately. But, yeah, you look at the Big 12 here. I said it at the beginning of the year during our preseason episode, and then I said it again during our Big 12 season preview episode as well, that this is the deepest I think the Big 12 has been in years. Right now you've got 12 of the 14 teams with double-digit wins. The only two that don't are West Virginia, Oklahoma State. Only one team doesn't have a victory in conference play so far, and of course that's Oklahoma State. But you've got 7 teams on any given night that are ranked right now, according to a couple different sites. 12 of the 14 Big 12 teams have a strong case for the NCAA tournament. That's insane.
Wow.
They're probably not going to get 12 by the time it's all said and done. But right now, having 12 teams that are capable and eligible of being in the March Madness tournament, it's fantastic. Texas Tech sitting at the top of the Big 12 at 4-1. Don't think we really expected that coming into the year. Not that they're a bad team. We knew they'd be good. But they're sitting there at the top with K-State. I think the one that cracks me up the most, and of course they've recovered a little bit though, is Houston. Everyone knows how much we hate Houston because of where they got seeded last year in the tournament, and then they come to Big 12 play, and they had that crappy schedule in their previous conference, and now they get strong competition. They dropped 2 of their first 3 in Big 12 play, of course. Now Ken Pom still has them as like the number 1 team in the country analytically, which is kind of frustrating. But yeah, Houston sitting at 4-2. They've already suffered 2 losses. TCU's beat up on a few teams, lost a couple. Baylor. I mean, every single team in the Big 12 as I go through has either an ugly loss or a game that they probably shouldn't have lost that they did. So I guess if you want to take any consolation or any solace as a KU fan, as much as the 2 losses we had are incredibly frustrating, and we've had a few other wins that we've had to kind of screech out there at the end, everyone in the Big 12 is beating up on each other so far, except for Oklahoma State. They can't find a win because they're the worst team in the conference. But the Big 12, like I said, I think it's at an all-time high competition-wise. Any given night, you're getting a top. Right now, I think, again, I didn't pull this up before we started, but I think 10 of the 14 Big 12 teams are top 70 Ken Pom rating right now. So you've got a tough schedule, and it doesn't get any easier because, of course, KU goes on to Iowa State this weekend, and then it just gets tougher from there. But yeah, we dropped the 2 Big 12 games that we shouldn't have. We should be sitting here 6-0 at the top of the conference with a 2-game lead. Unfortunately, that puts a little bit of pressure on the rest of the year to continue doing what we do in Big 12 play. But KU's had a couple impressive wins. Kevin McCullough's been great. Johnny Furphy has been electric since he's gotten the starting lineup, and of course we'll talk about him a little bit more here later in this episode. But yeah, Big 12 play it's been tough, and that kind of leads me into my next thing here is the frustrations we've had have been on the road concerns.
That's right.
So let's get into that. I know you believe this is the worst Bill Self team on the road. We didn't dive into it too much in that episode, but tell me why you feel that way, and do you still feel that way?
I still feel that way. We've seen past Bill Self teams that have less talent play their hearts out and know that they're the better team cohesively. And there a lot of past Bill Self teams have tons of guys that have played years together with. I think that's another big factor. And when you have that cohesion within your team, you just find ways to win. And Bill Self, I don't think he's lost a step at all. I don't think he's the problem at all. But for whatever reason, maybe it's the experience together as a team, or maybe it's egos. I don't know what it is. But I think for the most part, we've found our identity as far as like who we go to for scoring and who's gonna lead the team defensively. I think we have those answers. But it almost seems like on the road we're showing a little bit of lack of effort.
Yeah.
I gotta call out Hunter Dickinson here. I love Hunter. I think we all do. The game against West Virginia, he was a little banged up, if I recall correctly. But I don't think that should excuse him just with his complete lack of effort in rebounding. I mean, it was bad. There were times where I was like, how do you not go get that ball? I'm shouting at my TV, like, how do you not go get that ball? It's one of those things that cost us that game. There's a couple other things that cost us that game, but I think that effort level could have helped out if it was just a little bit higher. There's some real potential in this team, but right now they are playing like the worst road team under Bill Self that I've ever seen, and I don't know if it gets any better. We're late into the season in terms of the entirety of the season, so if Bill Self hasn't kicked them into gear by now, I don't know when he would. To be honest, it's really scary knowing that we have really scary road matchups against ranked opponents coming up in our schedule, and the fact that we've lost two of our gimmies on the road, that's bad. I'm scared. KU always finds a way to pull it out at the end. So I don't know. Maybe I should just be quiet, but it's very concerning.
The lack of effort is very concerning. I mean, this is two different teams when they play at home and on the road, and I know a lot of teams are like that. But just the intensity and the tenacity we see on the road is just nowhere close to what we're expecting or used to. I think you kind of nailed it there with Hunter. He's been pretty disappointing on the road. Now, granted, some of these games he's gone up against a guy with some really good size. And we know he struggled against guys with size. A lot of big men struggle against another guy that is his same size because you can't do the same things they're doing. But yeah, just the effort level we're playing. We've been sloppy with the ball, especially on the road. DeJuan's made terrible passes. Yeah. We forced a lot of things. We've become so one dynamic or one face offense that Hunter, if he's not getting his easy looks, he's forcing things, and the rebounding is a big concern. On the road, we're getting out rebounded right now. Hunter, a 7-foot guy, is getting out rebounded. Our guards and wings are getting more rebounds than Hunter right now, which is a problem. So, yeah, the lack of effort and the fight on the road is definitely a big concern for me. I wonder how much of that, is really – I don't think it's coaching. I think it's just player effort. I don't really know what the answer to that is other than they got to focus in and lock back in because there's no reason they should have let West Virginia do what they did. I mean, I know West Virginia had a historic first half shooting – lights out from three.
Yeah.
Had one of their best games they've ever played. They're one of the, in Ken Palm's rankings, they're one of the worst offensive teams, one of the worst shooting teams, and they shot over 50% in the game. If you were looking at the box score and just saw KU side, KU finished over 50% from the floor, scored a ton of points, yet they still lost. And you're sitting here wondering how on earth did KU, who had a very efficient offensive game, they had one of their worst defensive games. Now, again, West Virginia shot the lights out. But we've just struggled to guard the 3-point line. We've been struggling to get defensive rebounds.
We always
gave up a lot of boards. It's just
why are Bill Self teams and Kansas in particular just why are we always bad at guarding the 3? I don't get it. I mean, maybe Bill Self knows something that I don't. I mean, he's way smarter than me, so I'm not trying to just say I could coach better because I absolutely cannot. I think there's a lot of power in not having your guys way out on the perimeter. I mean, theoretically, better chances at getting rebounds. All this stuff goes way more in depth than what I'm capable of processing in my own little brain. But we just always have sucked at guarding the 3. And yeah, you said it. I mean, they had a historical night. They shot darn near 60%. I remember it was 80% in the first half.
Something ridiculous like that. Yeah.
It was insane from 3, 80% from 3, and it's dude. I mean, it was Villanova Final Four vibes in West Virginia. Sometimes you just lose those games, but it's not good when it's against West Virginia. Villanova, you can excuse that. When it's against West Virginia, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, no. We're sitting here at 16-3, 2 losses on the road. The season's not coming to an end, and we're not crashing and burning. There's some question marks here on the road. We got to figure out how to lock back in to defensively. Bill Self always tells you it starts on the defensive side of things. If guys are not showing effort out there, they're not going to get playing time. And a few guys have struggled in that department, so we've seen some different rotations and minutes given out. But it's got to start there on the defensive side. Offensively, I'm not too worried right now. I mean, if you look at KU's roster right now, KU's getting 50 points a night from Kevin McCullough, Hunter Dickinson, and KJ Adams. They're going to score. Kevin and Hunter are going to give you almost 20 points every single night. The two of them are out there, 20 points each. They're going to find ways to get buckets. Obviously, we've seen an uplift in offense with Johnny Furphy in the starting lineup, which again we'll talk about here in a second. But we got to figure out how to lock in defensively because we know this team's going to be able to score. They're going to find ways to get the ball in the basket. KJ has become a little bit more of a threat in the mid-range game. Not saying that he's, a tremendous shooter yet, but he's finding ways to get active in the mid-range game. Yep. But yeah, my concerns are on the road. You got to have your senior point guard, DeJuan Harris, step up. He's been, from our standards, he's had a bad season. Yes. I was watching a clip earlier on Twitter that somebody put out, and they were saying like the difference between this team and other teams in the past is, our point guard's not playing aggressive offensively. I was thinking, if I were to swap out a point guard, I was watching videos of one of our worst teams we've had, that 2021 team, where Marcus Garrett, leads the team as the point guard. Well, Marcus Garrett, similar to DeJuan Harris, good passer, great ball defender, on-ball defender, but he had the ability to drive and get to the basket and get shots up. DeJuan's he's not shooting. He's not doing anything offensively. Before Furphy got put into the starting lineup, it was you had your one man and your two man both doing nothing offensively for you. And when you've got two guys not looking to shoot or looking to score, the defense can just settle in on Hunter like they have been. And then it's led to some of these concerns. But it's got to start defensively. We got to get out in transition, pressure the ball. We got to be able to box out and rebound better. Otherwise, those road concerns are going to turn into further concerns, which leads me to my next topic here, which is what is KU's ceiling the remainder of the season, given how we've played so far? Still 16-3, still top 10 team in the country. If the season ended today, that'd still be a top 3 seed for sure. So again, not too concerned, but these small moments here and there are starting to add up to the concern level. So if I pitch that question to you there, what do you think this team's ceiling still is given its current status? Is it still Final Four?
I don't know if it's Final Four. I think if we finish conference play with 5 or less losses, then yes. In conference play, 5 or less losses in conference play, I think then yes. So that would be 6 losses overall, right? I think that would mean that we would have dialed in and figured out what our identity is on the road, and stopped getting in our heads. But man, this team is looking like a second round exit. I hate to say it. We're looking like a second round exit when we can't play well on the road. Guess what? It's not the road, but it's neutral sites when you're in the tournament. So what are we going to look like on neutral sites? Granted, I think so far in non-conference play, neutral sites, we didn't look half bad. So, I think that we have, realistically, if I was to guess where we're going to end up, I think it's Elite Eight. I think we lose in the Elite Eight. Just a shot in the dark right now. The season still has a lot to develop, but yeah, that's kind of the vibe I'm getting now.
I think the other thing that's still going well for us in regards to college basketball as a whole is it's not just the Big 12 this year that has just been beating up on each other. All of college basketball, you've had multiple teams in the top 25 drop games they should. We just saw Kentucky almost basically got blown out last night, and they've been they've looked really good the last 2 weeks, and then they basically get blown out last night. So college basketball as a whole, maybe that's talent across the league is up, especially with the transfer portal, NIL guys sticking around longer. So that I think that's probably a good thing for college basketball. So even though KU maybe doesn't look like the dominant team we're used to, it's not like every other team in the country looks just as dominant. Even Purdue's had their issues. Arizona's had problems. Tennessee's had struggles there. There's still plenty. North Carolina looks really good right now, but they're still prone to drop a game here or there if RJ Davis isn't playing well or Baycott is missing shots. So I guess that's a good thing for us as far as our ceiling. I still think the capability of this every year it's Final Four or bust, national championship or bust for me. I think if we play to our abilities of Hunter, like you said, we still have 2 All-American candidates and National Player of the Year candidates on this team. The starting five's been solid for the most part. Obviously, the bench has struggled. We've talked before about how much do we really need the bench to put in points-wise versus they just need to play quality minutes, play strong defense, get the ball at transition. Obviously, you need Timberlake to hit some threes. You need El Marco to do something when he's on the court. Parker to just do what he's doing. So I guess my concern level is not crazy high yet, unless we see more of these games that we drop where the defensive effort's just not there. Hunter just not showing up on the boards. McCullough starts to force things because no one can get open, and DeJuan keeps making terrible passes. So for me, our ceiling, the two things I'm looking at, ability to create shots outside of Kevin and Hunter. meaning we got to figure out how to get guys into space with Timberlake and Furphy, El Marco, and even Dewan, get them into space so that there's not as much pressure on Hunter because he's getting double and triple teamed a lot. And if that's the case, someone's got to be open. They've got to hit shots. So we got to figure out how to move the ball around enough to get some open looks there. And the last game, of course, we saw Furphy get a ton of open looks. And then for me, the other thing is I think our ceiling is going to be dependent on the ability of DeJuan Harris. We know he's a lockdown defender. We know he can initiate and run the offense. He's got to be more aggressive for me. He's got to be able to provide more of an impact on the game outside of just his leadership and defensive side of the ball. Right now, and again, up until Furphy joined the starting lineup, you had two guards that were providing you nothing offensively. They were never a threat. The defense wasn't playing them like they were a threat. They were sagging in and surrounding the middle. That cannot happen as you get into strong competition. So DeJuan's got to step up his game. I'm not asking him to take 10 shots a game, but he's got to get 4 to 6, 7 shots a game where he's looking to score, not just taking an open shot because it's there, but looking to move the ball around, go around a screen, something to kind of get active there. But I still say their ceiling is as high as it's ever been. Like I said, we sub 2 of the top players in the country, so there's no reason to believe otherwise. But the competition around us is starting to pick up and close that gap. So maybe our margin of error this year is smaller. Just like we said last year, K's margin for error last year was tiny because they didn't have their traditional big man. They just didn't have the standard looking team that we're used to seeing.
Speaking of margin of error, I saw this on Twitter that the Seth Greenberg mentioned that we have the smallest margin of error, and that he's ever seen or whatever he said. But he's right. There's a subsect of KU fans that are like, oh, Seth, he hates Kansas, or he whatever. No, he's right. I tweeted that out. I was like, man, I'm sorry. I hate to admit it, but he's right. Just the way that we're playing, we got to lock in, or it's not going to be pretty the rest of Big 12 play. Yeah.
And like I said, the schedule doesn't get any easier. You got Iowa State on the road this weekend that we'll talk about here in a minute. You get Oklahoma State at home and then Houston at home. A big matchup in 2 weeks. Then you've got on the road at K-State, and it gets tougher and tougher from there. So they gotta lock in, gotta dial in, gotta refocus, put out the effort on the defensive side of the ball, figure out how to rebound and limit second chance opportunities for the other team, and put teams away. I think KU this year, they've played down to competition sometimes. Even that Eastern Illinois game, barely scraped that one by. Oklahoma State, they dominated, I think, from start to finish for the most part. But they got to figure – I mean, that UCF game, we were up 18 in the first half, and then UCF comes back and basically stops us every single time down the court. So we got to play to our level and not to the level of the other team. Continue driving the ball through Hunter and Kevin. Because, again, both those guys are having a phenomenal year. Like you said, Hunter's got to step up in some of these games and provide more. If he's not going to get a lot of looks offensively, then he's got to provide an impact somewhere else, whether that's passing, moving the ball, or just out-rebounding the guy in front of him. But enough of a little bit of the negative talk. Let's get into some of the positive stuff that's coming up. And like we said, Johnny Furphy has entered into the starting lineup. No, not to anyone's surprise, El Marco's struggled, and he's not been great at all. Furphy's gotten a little bit more run time, and now Furphy has made his way into the starting lineup. And since he's done that, he's provided a significant boost. He's already had multiple double-digit scoring games, just finished a monster game this last Monday, scoring 23 on 7 of 8 shooting. Double-double, by the way. Another freshman with a double-double. That's fantastic. Also disappointing that he led the team in rebounding. But good for him because he's providing a big impact. So Johnny Furphy, and I've gone back and forth. There's a lot of fun nicknames out there. I put this in another podcast last night. But I'm going to call him the Wanda from Down Under. And that was my terrible Australian accent there. But the Wanda from Down Under, he's been fantastic since starting in the lineup. He's getting open looks. He's showing his athleticism. 6 weeks ago we were talking about KU might have a one-and-done freshman, and that was El Marco. But now, there might be a little bit concerned that Furphy's playing so well and getting a lot of looks from scouts that maybe he plays his way into a draft slot. I'm hoping that's not the case, but yeah, he's been fantastic since he's come in. I know you haven't got to see the entire game or the last couple games, but just tell me what you're seeing from Johnny Furphy, what kind of energy he brings to this team, and how that's impacting the team.
Furphy is showing us exactly what we recruited him for. He is going on another level these days, and I'm so happy that he was able to just ball out in front of his family. How amazing is it that his family made the trip, and he took that opportunity and he just ran with it. He grabbed the bull by its horns and he took charge of that game when we needed him to the most. So Johnny Furphy, we knew he was a good shooter. We knew that he was athletic. We knew that he was speed plus Christian Brown mixed into one player, and he's showing that now, and it's really good that he's doing this at a time in our season where, albeit we still did lose to West Virginia with him in the starting lineup, I think it's at this point in the season when we need to figure something out right now or the world will end. He's starting to really be the answer for us. I tweeted it out. Has he been like he's the answer. He's the answer that we needed. He's put to bed the fifth starter question mark that we have had all season long. All season long, we've had that question. So hats off to Furphy. He's my favorite player on the team right now. I think he's a lot of people's favorite player on the team right now, and he's certainly playing like it. Gosh, I hope we have him for another year, maybe two. I mean, but am I being too greedy there? Probably, but he's kicking butt.
He's had a couple, I don't remember exactly how many it's been, but a couple starts in a row now, 3 games in a row of 30-plus minutes, 23 points in his last outing, 13 before that, 15 before that, 9 of 16 from the three-point line in those 3 games. He's shooting nearly 40% from 3 on the season so far. Obviously, we knew it was going to take a little bit of time for him to get going because you come in late, you're not going to get a lot of playing time. He struggled defensively, with the quickness of the game and catching up. But now he's getting his playing time. Unfortunately, it's because, the other freshman guard on the team, Elmarco Jackson, is not providing a impact right now, at least not a positive one. But Furphy's looked good. He seems to be the missing link. I'm not saying there's a ton of pressure on him to be this knockdown shooter, but he certainly adds a dynamic element to this offense. If we can get spacing and get him open looks, he's going to provide what Timberlake's supposed to provide. And I know Timberlake's athletic and he's capable, but clearly Furphy's the guy that's going to get the looks for now. He's been a lot of fun to watch, and obviously the season's still young for him. He's going to have a huge impact on the stretch. It's possible if he works his way up the leaderboard too, offensively, and becoming the third scoring threat after Hunter and McCullough, of course. But he's been fantastic. He's provided a fantastic spark. Love to see that. So shout out Johnny Furphy. He's been fantastic. I guess that the next question then is, what's your thoughts on the disappointment of Elmarco Jackson? What do you think's going on with him?
I think he has kind of carried a little bit of a burden on his shoulders. And I think it's kind of been weighing down on him a little bit too much. Yeah, he's a very talented player. He's obviously shown flashes. He's capable, confidence level, and I think him knowing that he's not the guy, I think both of those factors have kind of taken him down a peg, maybe in his overall gameplay. I mean, he defers a lot, and I don't blame him. He's a freshman. He defers a lot, but he's got to know that when he's open, you take the shot, and when there's a lane that's being created, you got to attack, and he's capable of it. I think he'll be okay. Honestly, it's not the end of the world if he comes back because of this. I think he has potential, and the NBA draft likes potential, but obviously he's got to show something too. I'd love to have him back next year, and I can't wait to see what he continues to do the rest of the season. I think with the pressure being off, with him coming off the bench and being the energy that we need off the bench, it can only mean good things for his game moving forward.
I think that's going to help him. I was not a fan coming into the year. I know there's a lot of people that thought Elmarco should be the 2 spot. I was not a huge fan coming into the year of that pairing with DeJuan.
Same.
Because we don't really have a true point guard on this team outside DeJuan. So my thought was, all right, Elmarko comes off the bench as your primary ball handler that initiates the offense. However, we know how Bill Self is. DeJuan's going to get 35 minutes a night. He's not coming off the floor. Now, we can have the debate of should he come off the floor. There are times where I think maybe he should get a few minutes to sit because of his own play. But we've never really seen Elmarko run the offense, and he's not the dynamic shooting guard to really play the two that you're looking to use him scoring. So in that starting lineup, he hasn't really had a great role or spot on that in the rotation when DeJuan's on the floor because they don't have enough overlap of good things, and there's not anything Elmarko does great by himself to warrant that. Obviously, we've seen him when he looks to score and he's aggressive and he takes the shots. He's actually done pretty good. He's got a nice little mid-range jumper game. He's quick. He's been getting better defensively, I think. He's got quick hands, great secondary, help defender, not the best on-ball defender yet, but he's a freshman. I think with him, it's kind of been the fit. Spencer, I think, said this a few weeks ago. He was saying how if you think back to when we got Quentin Grimes came in, similar kind of situation, just wasn't the best fit alongside Devon Dotson. And then, of course, Charlie Moore was on that team too. So Quentin Grimes kind of became this, we have to force his game to be a three-point shooter. Now, since he's in the NBA, he's been more of that 3-and-D type guy. But coming into college, he was a primary ball handler looking to score off the dribble, not just a knockdown shooter. And again, that's not anything how Elmarko plays. But I think the fit alongside a ball-dominant point guard like DeJuan Harris has made that a struggle. And when that struggled, again, like I said, you have two guys that are not providing anything offensively for you. So him coming off the bench could be a great spark. Need to see him produce when he's out there. I would love to see him take minutes from DeJuan, not because I want DeJuan to sit, but I don't want to see the two of them out there together. If DeJuan's out there, I'd rather see Timberlake, Furphy, or even Jamari McDowell because they provide something different. I think Elmarko needs to be treated as the primary ball handler when he's on the court. And run the offense or let him initiate the offense and see what he's capable of. Because I know DeJuan's going to be back again next year, but Elmarko's not really going to hit his ceiling at KU without having the ball in his hands and learning how to run the offense. So maybe Bill Self will go a different direction there and try it out. But obviously we know as we get into crunch time, the minutes are going to dwindle down. It's going to be the guys that provide the most impact and the guys that bring the most impact defensively as well.
Sure.
Yeah, that's my thoughts on Elmarko. We could probably get into Nick Timberlake too. Don't really want to spend much time on there. If he's in, he's got to hit shots and make plays. If he's not making plays, then there's no reason to be out there. The other night he kind of came in the closing lineup, which was kind of interesting, considering he sat most of the entire second half, but then closed out the game. But yeah, Timberlake, he's maybe getting a little bit of rhythm lately, hitting a few knockdown jumpers. He's had I don't know what game was that in the last 3 or 4 games where he was just playing really physical. He got that jump ball on the breakaway. So if he's doing that, sign me up. He doesn't have to have 12, 15 points a night, but he's got to be able to hit knockdown threes when he's open, look to get him the ball when he's open and on the court, and then just not be a liability defensively. Because like we said, when we're on the road, we struggle defensively. So if he's going to be out there, he can't struggle defensively because we're already struggling enough as it is. But yeah, again, I think the ceiling's still high. There's a lot of good things to still see in this team. Like I said, Kevin McCullough and Hunter Dickinson are having some outstanding years. It is possible. It's not likely, but it's possible that KU has 2 players score 20 points on average for the course of the season. So both guys are on pace to put up the best seasons in Bill Self coaching history. Kevin McCullough, I think, is having the best statistical season Bill Self has had in the guy. I mean, Ochai was pretty close. Frank Mason was pretty close. But this definitely ranks up there top 3 or 4 for me. Hunter, of course, when he gets his looks, and plays aggressively, he's just fine. And we just got to figure out how to get the offense moving a little bit better on the road games. But all right, let's finish up here. Let's finish up a little bit of Iowa State talk. Maybe we'll break this down a little bit further later in the week. Just kind of want to quickly touch on this just in case we don't have time. Iowa State, another team that coming into the year, we weren't quite sure where they were going to be. We always know they're scrappy and they're feisty, but they're sitting at 14-4, 3-2 in Big 12 play, number 23rd ranked team in the country. losses against Virginia Tech and Texas A&M. Texas A&M's a top 25 team right now, so that's not a bad loss. That was a very close game. They lost to Oklahoma on the road, and Oklahoma, again, top 15 team, so not a bad loss there. Lost at BYU 87-72. That's one of their biggest losses of the season, but again, against another top 25 team. And then they just knocked off TCU on the road this weekend in a very tough environment. So we know Iowa State's going to be tough. They always are. We know going up to Ames sucks every time. We've played pretty well the last couple seasons, but you always know it's going to be a grinded out game. There's going to be a lot of whistles. There's going to be a lot of angry fans when the whistles go our way. There's going to be a lot of ugly shooting. Iowa State's going to hit some ridiculous threes that they shouldn't be hitting. I still think on paper, KU's the better team. I think the thing that worries me, though, about Iowa State is they're a pretty deep team. They play like 8 to 10 guys consistently. They've got quite a few guys that average double-digit minutes. So their bench is a little bit longer. They've got a fairly even, they evenly score across the group. They got 3 guys in double figures. Lipsy, their guard's kind of been their go-to guy for the most part with Gilbert, both of them leading them in scoring. I'm going to butcher his name here, but Milan Momcilovic, their freshman forward, has done pretty well in the paint, so he could give Hunter a little bit of struggle. He's a little bit smaller than Hunter, but he's pretty versatile, can move around. So again, it will have to be a good game defensively from Hunter, or maybe they play KJ on him and go to do a slight zone or something. But Iowa State's good. I haven't dove in too much into them other than the fact that they're going to be scrappy. We always know that. They're going to play us tough. They're going to be hard-nosed defensively. They're going to put a lot of pressure. They're going to find ways to take Hunter out of the game and make guys like DeJuan and Furphy beat them. Right now, KU is actually the underdog in this matchup, kind of surprising. They've got Iowa State on most places as the favorite. And again, that's probably because KU struggled on the road. We know KU can score on the road, but we know they can't stop others from scoring on the road this year. So it's going to be a fun game. I can pull up a couple stats here. Is there anything you want to dive into or touch on about this Iowa State team that you know?
Well, nothing in particular, but I do think, I don't know, I feel oddly optimistic that we're going to win this game. I know it's
an earlier day game too.
Oh shoot! Okay, I take it.
12:30. You know how much we struggle in those early day games.
I take it all back. We just talked all episode about how how we are terrible on the road. Well, I don't know. I just feel oddly confident that we can win. I feel like one of two things is going to happen. It's either going to be a 30-piece by Hunter, or it's going to be like a 25-point performance from Nick Timberlake, some random guy, almost like the Elijah Johnson game.
Yeah, that was. That's like one of the top 5 games that's always in my mind. Elijah just going off in the next year when Embiid went off on him.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, Iowa State, man, when I was in school, those games were really tough every year. I mean, honestly, it still is. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because I think back when I was still going to KU, I think the level of competition between specifically KU and Iowa State was just at an all-time high, cannot be matched. And Elijah Johnson having that game, putting up like 40 points on them was just
ridiculous.
He was my favorite player that year. I just loved Elijah. Anyway, I do think some weird Hilton tragic is going to happen. I think we're going to pull out the win, but I mean, obviously it's going to be tough. I understand why we're not really favored to win. And with our struggles on the road, it wouldn't shock me if we have a blowout loss. And I don't know if my opinion on the rest of Big 12 play would change with another loss, but certainly I think if we lose this game, I'm just going to go into every road game just expecting to lose at this point. So we got to pull out a win. I think it's about time we do.
So not to jump too far ahead with the rest of the schedule, but like we said, the Big 12 is a gauntlet this year. There's a ton of good teams. If KU does somehow drop a game again this weekend, they're going to slide down. But as tough as the Big 12 is, how many losses do you think is a realistic loss record and still win the Big 12? Is it 6? Is it 5? Is it 8? I mean, there's so many good teams that over the next 2.5 weeks, one, we're going to know a lot about this Kansas basketball team, but we're going to know a lot about the Big 12 to see who's legit, who's pretending. Yeah, I would not be shocked if I know we said it a couple weeks ago that it could be a 6-loss team could still win the Big 12 with as difficult as it is. But has that opinion changed for you at all? Do you think that's still a fair assessment of this league?
I think 6 is the number. I think at the beginning of Big 12 play, I probably would have said 4 or 5, but as Big 12 play has developed, and we see just everybody beating up on each other, I think that number is 6. I think if you go to 7, you're talking out your rear end. I think you're getting second place, third place if you have 7 losses. But yeah, 6 can do it. 5, you'd feel really comfortable.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna know a lot in the next week or so. Hopefully, KU pulls one out. I will say this from a statistical standpoint: Iowa State averages about 6 made threes a game. So sign me up for 8+. It's just gonna happen. That's just we just know how it goes. Anytime someone plays KU, they shoot above their capabilities, even if the defense is good. Iowa State shoots about 34.5% from 3. They don't really have anybody that's got like glaring crazy numbers. Their freshman at Momslovich takes the most 3-pointers. He's shot 92, but he's only made 36 of them. Lipsey's been a little bit more efficient, 23 for 60. So they take the threes, but they're not making a ton of them. But you just know one of those 3 guys I just mentioned is probably gonna hit 4. That's just how it goes. I mean, that's just the nature of playing Kansas basketball, especially when you're at home. You're gonna have a shooting performance from somebody that they're not supposed to do. So yeah, if we can get out and defend the 3-point line, I think we do have the advantage size-wise with Hunter. We got to be able to get him active. He's averaging 11.1 rebounds on the year. He's got to have double-digit rebounds. He can't have another 5 or 6 rebound performance. And then of course offensively, if he gets 15+, Kevin's 15+, KJ's double digits, and DeJuan's not turning the ball over, I think this team can beat anybody in the country. And now with the addition of Johnny Furphy, adding an element to the offense that we haven't seen yet, if he can be consistent and not force shots, but take his open shots and make them, that's going to change how teams play. And they're going to have to start guarding the 3-point line a little bit more, which means Hunter's going to have more space to work with. And so that's not a bad thing at all. But that's all I got for now. Any other thoughts you have on this team, this game, season, anything like that before we get out of here?
No, I think we've said it all for now.
All right, well, that'll do it for tonight. Again, you've been listening to the KC Sports Authority podcast. You can find us out over on Spotify. Make sure you follow the podcast on Spotify. If you do listen to us there, you can share it with a friend, give us a 5-star review. And, of course, if you're watching over here on YouTube, we would love for you to hit that subscribe button for us. Right now, we are right at 300. Next goal is 500. So we would love your support throughout the rest of the season. Share it with a few friends if you haven't done so already. Tell them to jump aboard because we've got KU content, we've got Chiefs content, big AFC Championship game this weekend that we'll have a preview out later this week on. A lot of NFL talk here in the offseason. We're going to talk some more Royals, get in some KU football stuff. Hopefully, I have a few guests I'm still trying to coordinate some scheduling with to get on. So a lot of fun stuff coming. You don't want to miss any of it. So make sure you're hitting subscribe right now. Would love for you guys to leave your comments. The only comments I've been getting lately have been from the opposing team. So I would love to see some Jayhawk fans in the comment section. Tell us what you're thinking about this team, how you feel, confidence level going into this game at Iowa State and maybe the rest of the Big 12 play. So feel free to leave those comments there. Like I said, you can also hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at KCSA Pod. You can find JB at Call Me John Bruno over there on Twitter, me at Keeganator_11. You can also hit up Spencer at sgrade20_23 on Twitter. Hit us up, share any thoughts you have with us. If there's things you guys would love for us to talk about on the podcast, we'd love to get your insight. So hit us DMs up anywhere on there. Yeah, DMs are open. If you have something you want to talk about, maybe we'll try and figure out how to get into the podcast. Want to try and do some lives here soon so we can interact with fans more often as long as you guys show up for it. But yeah, that'll do it for tonight. We'll wrap this thing up and hopefully KU gets a victory this weekend and we can put all the stress and road concerns behind us. So that'll do it for tonight, guys. Thank you. And as always, rock chalk.
Rock chalk.